Morning, I'm out here by Governor's Peak to talk about a little anime. Emma, Victorian romance. Victorian romance, Emma, is, as the title implies, a period romance set in England at the turn of the century. No, that other century, oil lamps, horse-drawn carriages, and that sort of thing. It's released in North America by the Right Stuff's Nozomi Entertainment. Emma is the live-in housemaid of Mrs. Kelly Stoner, who's a former governess now retired to a modest home in London. The romance begins when one of Mrs. Stoner's former charges, Mr. William Jones, arrives at his former governess's door to say hello after many years. Master Williams is quite smitten with the maid Emma, and he contrives to meet her again and again, each time making it seem as if it's mere coincidence that they ran into each other. For her part, Emma has been rejecting suitors for years, but finds Mr. Jones to be charming.
お父様はお元気？
はい、とっても。あ、どうも。
散々顔を見せに来なさいって言ったのに、なしのつぶてで。そのくせいきなり現れるんですもの。あなたにはいつもびっくりさせられるわ。そんなにメイドが珍しくって？
Aside from a number of cute and amusing early misunderstandings, what could possibly go wrong with this simple romance? Well, for one thing, William's family are quite upper class, and they live in an almost palatial estate. Though they're merchants and not nobility, a marriage to a common maid would still be far beneath them, and William is the oldest son. William's father has arranged a very proper marriage for his son with a Miss Eleanor Campbell, who has a minor family title to add to the family. William's whole family, indeed the entire household and its army of servants, is simply scandalized by the whole idea of William being in love with a maid. Adding to the mix is a visiting Indian prince, Hakim, who's a friend of William's from India, who's pushing William to follow his heart. Meanwhile, Mrs. Stoner is quietly hoping the best for her longtime servant, Emma. The story of Emma divides between Emma's relatively simple life with Mrs. Stoner and William's more interesting life out at his great estate. And, of course, to the couple's many meetings as they slowly, and I mean very slowly, go through the motions of a very, very proper British romance. When we get near the end of the first season, we'll also get a little background story for Emma, too. Something's out of Charles Dickens. The story is so simple it's a wonder it can hold our attention for 12 episodes. As William's friend Hakim says, you love Emma, Emma loves you, what's complicated? And yet, it did hold my attention throughout. There are many minor complications, to be sure, and some sweet moments and amusing misunderstandings. It's all very, very low-key. The characters in this story really sparkle. Two shy and very proper Brits and their very different circle of friends get a very nice treatment. It's a story without villains unless you count the elder Mr. Jones, who's intent on providing a proper marriage for his son as autocratic head of the household. So here we get two interesting, contrasting stories. At one point in the series, Emma is preparing a very simple dinner for Mrs. Stoner and some of her friends that she's entertaining, and at the same time, the Jones family is entertaining for a host of people and some nobility out at their estate with a whole army of chefs and workings.
もうじきパンも焼けます。
お見事。付け合わせは終わった？はい、
仕上げお願い。
じゃあソースにかかってちょうだい。鴨のローストはただいま。
Emma isn't an action series, so the animation really isn't called upon to do very much. The artwork, on the other hand, is splendid as it gives us a detailed look at merry old England. You really have to appreciate the attention for period detail that went into every aspect of the story, from tea strainers to brooms. And the characters' faces, while simple, are remarkably expressive of subtle emotion, and that's good because there's a lot of subtle emotion going on.
Emma-san! 昨日はどうも。
ジョーンズさん。
こんにちは。
ごめんなさい、気がつかなくって。
Really, the first season could be considered to have a conclusion. It's just not the conclusion we're hoping for, so we now have to impatiently wait for the second season's sequel, which Nozomi has scheduled for U.S. release later this year. I know this kind of slow romance story, devoid of action, fan service, or other customary anime features, may not appeal to a lot of American anime fans. This is a little more for the Meizen Ikoku crowd or the 5 centimeters per second fans. It's not the kind of show you started watching anime for. One could ask why tackle this story as an anime at all. Many of the BBC's various period productions have aired of PBS over the years. They almost speak our language, and they do have really convincing British accents too. Do the fans of this series also watch or read Charlotte Bronte or Jane Austen? But I still think this first season of Emma Victorian Romance deserves 4 stars. It's a simple story told with a lot of charm and great affection. Nozomi's DVDs are nicely put together. It's refreshingly released as a full season in a single pack of 4 DVDs. I'm not sure why they decided on just 3 episodes for DVD. It has English subtitles but no dub. I think that works out well since the price is right, and the younger kids who might be interested in this aren't going to have their attention held by this kind of slow story, and those are the only crowd that won't put up with subtitles at all. Nozomi's also included a thick booklet with the set, which has character bios, maps, and period background. More information than I needed to know, really. Thanks for listening.